In episode 8, Sims arrives at Gloria's bedside just after Juliet escaped. Sims actually has a really good relationship with Gloria because the only reason Sims has a son is because of Gloria. Him and his wife were having trouble conceiving a child until Gloria stepped in and helped. Because of that, he's willing to give her a little bit of a longer leash. He asks Gloria, what did Juliet Nichols pull out of that vent? And she tells him that it was a bag, one that Sheriff Holston hid there. We don't know how the rest of the conversation went, but you get the idea that Gloria did tell Sims there was a drive in the bag. As for where Juliet is, she went to go hide in her dad's office. She tried using the computer in her dad's office to access the drive, but she was unable to. You need a special computer to do that. The good thing is that office doesn't have secret cameras. So as Sims and the rest of Judicial try their hardest to locate where Juliet is, for the time being, she's incognito. She ends up falling asleep in the office and only waking up when she hears the radio go off and her name being called. It's Paul who tells her that she needs to come to the office ASAP, and once she gets there, it's Judicial tearing the office apart, looking for the drive. Billings is pissed. He feels like that when Juliet went to go visit Meadows, she must have done something that led Meadows to ordering this search. But he's also pissed at Judicial because this search is a blatant violation of the pact. Law enforcement premises can't be searched without extreme probable cause, and he feels like they don't have it. They completely ignore Paul's request to stop, continuing to search, but their search is coming up empty. They even go as far as to search Juliet's bag that's on her, but that doesn't have the drive in it either. She stashed it somewhere. Once Judicial finally leaves, pretty empty-handed, mind you, Paul and Juliet head into Juliet's office, and they both think the same thing. This doesn't feel random, it feels more personal. Juliet tells Paul that even though the warrant says Meadows, she didn't do this. When she was talking to Meadows privately, she could tell that Meadows wasn't the one calling the shots. And the person that she believes is calling the shots is Sims. All of it makes a lot of sense. Sims has never liked her and has been wanting to get rid of her since she arrived. Paul isn't so sure, but Juliet is very confident. There's a little bit of a lull in the conversation, and then Juliet remembers something that Paul said, that whole seizure was illegal. And Paul says, yeah, absolutely it was. They skipped about 10 steps. So Juliet gets a wild idea to go and arrest Sims. She storms into his office, interrupting a conversation with one of the agents who actually searched them. Sims was in the middle of yelling at him for not coming up with the drive. Neither Paul or Juliet hear that part of the conversation, though, because they were storming in. But Juliet tells Paul to take Sims into custody. And Paul, knowing the pact like the back of his hand, starts reciting exactly the law that Sims broke. Sims feels like this is a joke. It's only a matter of time before he's out. He doesn't really take it all that serious, but he is a little surprised that Paul would do something like this. They did work together for a long, long time. But Paul isn't loyal to his friends. Paul is loyal to the pact. Billings takes Sims away, and that leaves Sims' office all to Juliet. Juliet starts looking through some filing cabinets of Sims, and then she finds a secret compartment with a couple of files. And one of those files was her mother's. The file goes into the magnifying device that her mother built, the one that Judicial found and ultimately destroyed. It's something that Juliet's dad did not want her mom to build. So after reading the file, Juliet headed to go visit her dad and ask, why didn't you want my mom to build that magnifying device? He kind of dismisses it because Juliet's had strong feelings in the past, but Juliet says, no, this time I want to know why she killed herself. I wasn't willing to listen before, but I am now. He goes on to tell her that after they lost Juliet's brother, he kind of went inward. He devoted his life to his career, which wasn't the smart thing, while Juliet's mother pushed out. She wanted to get answers. She wanted to help people and make sure that what happened to them never happened to any other family. She didn't care about rules. That's why she made the magnifying device. And then one day, Judicial came in and destroyed it. Juliet's father has a lot of regrets in this situation. He regrets not doing something, not pushing back on Judicial, because ultimately it led to Juliet's mom being in a dark, dark place. After that moment, she was never the same again. Juliet mentions how her mother thought he had reported her, and honestly, Juliet did too. But after reading her mother's file, Juliet knows that Judicial was watching her mother with sensors through mirrors. Juliet apologizes to her dad for believing that he was the one who turned her mother in, gives him a hug, but then they get interrupted by one of the nurses who tells the doctor that maintenance is there to check something with the vents. And he didn't put in a maintenance request. Once the nurse leaves after they tell the guy to come back, Juliet says that maintenance guy is here to put one of those listening devices in here because this is a dead spot for them. So they're going to put a camera, they're going to put a listening device, they're going to put something that monitors what goes on in this room. She then goes and retrieves the hard drive that she stashed there earlier because she needs to find out exactly what's on it. Right before she leaves, she tells her dad, "Can you let Martha know that I'm coming down there? I should be there by 6 p.m. Juliet, however, doesn't make it by 6, and by 7, Martha gets really, really concerned. But Juliet just got held up on the steps. Judicial has put in checkpoints, making sure that people with relics don't get anywhere. That forces Juliet into hiding a bit. She's not quite sure what she's going to do, so she sends a note to Lucas asking him if he can stop by. With Lucas working in IT, Juliet figured that he might be able to help with freeing up the drive. After hearing the kind of restrictions that are on this drive in order to access it, Lucas tells her that she needs to take it to her work computer. The problem is she can't go there, and she asks Lucas if there's any way he can work around it, but he's hesitant to do that, and she begs him, saying, "Please, I think this drive has the answers to a lot of questions, like why Marnes and the mayor and George were killed." And that comes as news to him because Marnes and the mayor being killed, that wasn't in the papers. The story that they were told was they just died of natural causes. Lucas, though, is still hesitant to help her, and she says, "Come on, you should be the one who wants to help me. You sit in the cafeteria every night looking and wondering what's out there. What if the answers to your questions are on this drive?" He still doesn't want to help, and he starts talking about rules. And that's when Juliet bashes her mirror, exposing the hidden camera that was there, the one that Judicial watches her on. Just like Juliet's dad, Lucas had no idea that these cameras even existed. It's a real shocking moment for him. But even though it's shocking, it still doesn't work. Lucas doesn't want to risk getting in trouble because he's the only one taking care of his mother at the moment. And at that point, Juliet can't sit there and argue with him anymore. After smashing the mirror, she knows it's only a matter of time before Judicial shows up looking for her. So she gets out of there. And that ends up being a pretty smart call because a short while later, Judicial does show up at her doorstep, but she's nowhere to be found. Juliet heads down the silo, quickly trying to get to Martha, but she's stopped. She tries pulling the "I'm the sheriff, let me through," but that still doesn't work. That is until Bernard backs her up on it and commands Judicial security to step down. Bernard came looking for her because she arrested Sims. He wants to know why. And she says, "You were right. Judicial is planning a takeover, but Meadows is not the one behind it. It's Sims." He doesn't want to have this conversation in public, so they head to a cornfield. When they get in the middle of it, Juliet backs up her previous statement that Sims is actually the one calling the shots. Bernard kind of shakes his head and then asks Juliet, "What are they searching for? I mean, they tore your apartment up. Now there's checkpoints. What do you have that's so threatening?" Juliet just plays dumb, saying, "I have no idea what you're talking about." And Bernard says, "Come on, Juliet, the clock is ticking. So if you have the hard drive, then..." But he catches himself. He realizes that he just showed his hand. He accidentally said hard drive. He wasn't supposed to do that. And now Juliet is super suspicious of how Bernard knows that she had a hard drive. Juliet turns to run, but she runs right into Sims. It's at this moment that Juliet realizes it was actually Bernard who was the one calling the shots. And it was Bernard who had Marnes and the previous mayor killed. Juliet is in shock. And then she hears Bernard say, "I'm sorry, Sheriff Nichols, did you say you want to go outside? I heard that, right?" And Sims backs him up on this false claim. Juliet is even more surprised and asks him, "Why would you do this?" And Bernard says, "Because the needs of many outweigh the lives of a few, and that hard drive threatens the lives of everyone in the silo. And you are the greatest threat to the silo in 140 years. Judicial police then show up, and Juliet takes off running, but a short while later, she's caught and captured. As the police, which by the way includes Billings, escort Juliet back upstairs, Juliet pleads her case to Paul. But it's hard to plead the case when Sims and Bernard are sitting there saying, "No, she definitely said she wants to go outside." Juliet gets a break, though, when Paul, who is the one escorting her, his hands start shaking. Juliet knocks into him, grabs the bag from Sims that contains the hard drive, and then jumps over the edge of the silo. Thank you so much for checking out this recap. Please consider subscribing to the channel and subscribing to my Patreon. Hit thumbs up if you liked it. Smash that thumbs down button if you thought it sucked. If you left a comment, I don't get back to you. I usually don't check the comments unless they're like a super comment. Also, if you don't see the next video up on the end screen, not to worry, it'll be up in a day or two.